It was a Sunday lunch like any other. The table was set, sunlight spilling through the curtains, children laughing faintly in the living room. I had roasted chicken, potatoes, and fresh bread, the kind of meal that usually brought everyone together. But then, everything shattered. My husband's hand slammed against the wooden table so hard that the plates rattled, glasses tipped, and silence fell over the room like a heavy curtain. I froze. Everyone did. His voice cut through the stillness. I've been planning this for years. Those words, they weren't said in anger, not even in sadness. They were delivered with a coldness, almost satisfaction, as if he had finally reached the climax of a private story I hadn't been allowed to read. I stared at him, searching his face for clues. What did he mean? Planning what? Our daughter blinked rapidly, clutching her fork midair. My son shifted uncomfortably in his chair. My sister, who had come over to join us, leaned back as if she'd just witnessed something forbidden. I whispered, "Planning what? Exactly?" He didn't answer. Instead, he sat back, his fist still clenched, eyes fixed on me. There was a long pause, the kind that makes your skin crawl, before he smirked, almost too slightly for anyone else to notice. But I saw it. And in that moment, I realized something I didn't want to admit. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't a man losing his temper. This was calculated. The rest of the lunch turned into whispers, awkward shuffling, half-hearted attempts to change the subject. But no matter how hard they tried, every clink of a fork against the plate, every nervous laugh circled back to the weight of those words. He had been planning something for years. I felt my chest tighten. Suddenly, old memories began to replay like puzzle pieces I had ignored. The late-night phone calls he took in the garage. The locked drawer in his office I was never allowed to touch. The way his mother once said, "He's always been patient. He waits for the right moment." At the time, I brushed it off. Now, I wasn't so sure. After lunch, as the kids went upstairs and the dishes piled in the sink, I cornered him in the kitchen. "You can't just say something like that," I hissed. "What exactly have you been planning?" He glanced at me, then at the window. His lips curled into that same unsettling smirk. "You'll see." And with that, he walked away. I stood there, my hands trembling, the weight of his words pressing down on me. For years, what had I been blind to all this time? Before I go further, let me pause here. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. But only if you truly enjoy what I'm sharing here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what would you do if your husband said something like that in front of everyone? Because this is just the beginning. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, haunted by his words. And I knew deep down that whatever he had planned was already in motion. I woke up the next morning with his words still ringing in my head. I've been planning this for years. It wasn't just a sentence anymore. It was a shadow. It followed me from the bed to the kitchen, from the coffee pot to the bathroom mirror. Every glance at him, my husband, the man I thought I knew for 20 years, felt foreign. I kept asking myself, what could he possibly mean? The day stretched long, ordinary in all the wrong ways. He went about his routine as if nothing had happened, reading the newspaper, drinking his black coffee, scrolling through his phone. But I couldn't shake the unease. And then, little cracks began to surface in my memory. I remembered how he used to keep his phone face up on the table. But for the last 3 years, it was always face down. I remembered the business trips he swore were mandatory. Yet when I once called his hotel, the front desk said no one by his name was checked in. I remembered the nights he came home late, smelling faintly of cologne I didn't wear, of places I hadn't been. At the time, I swallowed my doubts. I told myself, he's working hard. He's providing for us. Don't be paranoid. But now I wondered if those cracks were deliberate signs, seeds he planted for me to doubt myself. That evening, I confronted him lightly, pretending to be casual. You know, what you said yesterday, about planning something for years. You were joking, right? He looked up from his laptop. His eyes didn't flinch, didn't soften. Do I look like I'm joking? The coldness in his tone froze me. Later that night, I called my sister. She was at the Sunday lunch, too. You heard him, didn't you? I asked, my voice trembling. Yes, she whispered. But maybe he just meant a surprise? Something good? I wanted to believe her. But the smirk, the silence, the way his hand lingered on the table as if he owned every piece of it. It wasn't good. It was sinister. And then my sister said something that made my stomach drop. You've been ignoring the signs for years. Maybe you just don't want to see the truth. That night, while he was in the shower, I quietly opened his laptop. He had left it unlocked, careless or maybe intentional. My heart pounded as I clicked through folders, searching. And then I found it. A folder labeled Contingency Plans. My hands shook as I opened it. Dozens of scanned documents, legal drafts, financial statements. Some with my name, some without. One file stood out. Phase 3. I clicked it. The screen filled with lines of text I barely understood. But one phrase jumped out at me like a knife to the chest. Final transfer of assets. I slammed the laptop shut as the bathroom door opened. My husband walked out, towel around his waist, steam swirling around him. His eyes flicked to the laptop. He smiled faintly. You shouldn't dig too deep. You might not like what you find. And just like that, he left the room, leaving me paralyzed, clutching the edge of the bed, wondering how long I had been living with a stranger. The following Sunday, I decided to test him. If my husband was truly planning something, maybe, just maybe, he'd slip again in front of others. So I invited the whole family over. My sister, my mother-in-law, even our grown children. I told myself it was just family time, but deep down, I wanted witnesses. The dining table was set with roast beef, mashed potatoes, wine glasses shining under the chandelier. It looked like a scene from a perfect family portrait, until he spoke. At first, everything seemed normal. The kids laughed, my sister poured wine, and my mother-in-law commented on how tender the meat was. But then my husband put down his fork, cleared his throat, and leaned back in his chair. You know, he began, his voice calm but cutting. People don't realize how much can be stolen from a man by the woman he trusts most. The room fell silent. My daughter's eyes darted to mine. My son shifted uncomfortably. My sister froze mid-sip. I swallowed. What are you talking about? He leaned forward, eyes locked on mine. I'm talking about years of sacrifices, years of pretending everything was fine while my own wife took what was mine. The words hung heavy, sharp, almost unrecognizable. My sister finally spoke. That's not fair. But he cut her off. Stay out of this. You don't know the half of it. My chest tightened. What was he accusing me of? What was he twisting into a crime? Then he dropped another bomb. Do you really think I didn't notice? The way you signed those papers, the way you smiled, knowing what you'd done. You stole years from me. I shook my head. What papers? What are you even talking about? But he didn't answer. Instead, he pushed his chair back, the legs screeching across the floor, and said something that made everyone's stomach drop. This is only the beginning. Everything you've hidden is about to come out. I looked around the table. My daughter was pale. My son's hands trembled. My mother-in-law's lips curled into something between a smirk and a grimace, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. The roast beef grew cold. The wine soured in my mouth. The family dinner I'd hoped would mend wounds had turned into a battlefield. And the worst part? He looked calm. Too calm. Like a man in control of a game no one else realized they were playing. That night, after everyone left, my son lingered in the hallway. His voice was soft, almost apologetic. "Mom, I think Dad's been keeping something from you." From all of us, I froze. "What do you mean?" He glanced toward the closed door of my husband's study. "He told me not to tell you. But I think you should know. That night, I barely slept." My son's words echoed in my ears. "Dad told me not to tell you." By morning, I felt like my house was no longer my own. Every room carried his shadow. Every silence felt like a trap waiting to spring. I decided to clear my head with a walk around the neighborhood. That's when I saw her. Mrs. Henderson, my elderly neighbor, standing by her fence trimming roses. She looked up, her eyes narrowing. "Morning, dear," she said softly. Then, after a pause, "Are you all right?" I must have looked pale because she stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I probably shouldn't say this, but I've seen things. Strange things. Your husband isn't who you think he is." Her words struck like lightning. "What do you mean?" I asked, gripping the fence rail. She glanced around nervously, as if afraid he might appear out of thin air. "I've lived here long enough to notice patterns. The late-night visitors. The way he handles those deliveries that come when you're not home. And..." She hesitated. I overheard him once. On the phone. He said, "She won't know until it's too late." My stomach churned. "When was this?" She pressed her lips together. "Years ago, but dear, sometimes the truth hides in plain sight. You just need to listen." I thanked her, though my voice cracked. Walking back to the house, I replayed her whisper in my head. "Your husband isn't who you think he is." Inside, I found him in his study, door slightly ajar. He was speaking on the phone, his tone sharp, deliberate. She's starting to ask questions. "If this goes wrong, we move to phase 4. Yes, I'll handle her." I froze in the hallway, blood draining from my face. "Handle me?" That evening, I confronted him again. "I ran into Mrs. Henderson today," I said carefully. "She remembers something you said years ago." His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. "What exactly did she tell you?" I swallowed hard. "That you said I wouldn't know until it's too late." For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he laughed, not joyfully, but cruelly. "So the old woman talks, huh? Maybe she should mind her own business." The air between us thickened, heavy with unspoken threats. I realized then, my neighbor's whisper wasn't gossip. It was a warning I should have listened to years ago. That night, I found myself staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I whispered aloud the question that had been haunting me since lunch. What exactly has he been planning? And when will he decide it's too late for me? By Monday morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living inside a puzzle where every piece had been turned upside down. The whispers, the files, his smirk at the dinner table. I told myself I needed proof, something solid. So while he showered before work, I slipped into the closet where he kept his suits. My hands trembled as I searched through the pockets. And then I found it. A folded receipt. Crisp, recently dated. It wasn't for groceries or gas or even the usual work expenses. It was a bank slip. Large sums of money. Transferred every month. Not hundreds. Not thousands. Tens of thousands. My chest tightened. The account name burned into my eyes. Marissa Caldwell. My sister. I staggered backward, gripping the closet door for balance. Why would my husband be funneling money to my sister? For years. That evening, I set the slip in front of him on the dinner table. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. He didn't flinch. He didn't even look surprised. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said calmly. "But since you did, I'll save us both the trouble of pretending. She's been in this longer than you realize." I froze. "In this? In what?" He leaned closer, his eyes cold, unblinking. "You'll see." Soon I couldn't take it anymore. I called Marissa that night. My words tumbled out, frantic, broken. "Why is he sending you money? What have you two been hiding from me?" On the other end of the line, silence stretched. Then her voice, brittle, low. "It's not what you think." My grip tightened on the phone. "Then what is it, Marissa? Tell me the truth." Her silence felt heavier than any confession. Finally, she whispered, "I was protecting you." "Protecting me?" My stomach twisted. "How is taking money from my husband protecting me?" I snapped. But she wouldn't answer. Her voice trembled as she said, "Please, just let it go. For your own sake." And then the line went dead. I stood there in the kitchen, the phone still pressed to my ear, staring at the shadows creeping across the walls. Protecting me? Or betraying me? The next morning, I couldn't focus on anything. My coffee went cold, the clock ticked louder than usual, and my thoughts kept circling back to one question. Why would my sister take money from my husband for years? I didn't wait. I drove straight to Marissa's house. She opened the door slowly, her eyes wide as if she had been expecting me. "Come in," she whispered. Inside, the curtains were drawn, her living room dim. She didn't even offer me a seat. She just stood there, wringing her hands. "Why?" I asked, my voice already breaking. "Why would you do this to me?" "My own husband. My own sister?" She shook her head, refusing to meet my eyes. "It's complicated." I took a step closer. "Complicated?" "You let him funnel money to you behind my back for years. Do you know what that feels like? Every second of my marriage, was it all a lie?" Her lips trembled. "I didn't want you to get hurt." "Hurt?" I snapped. "By hiding the truth, you hurt me more than anyone. You've been part of his plan, haven't you?" Finally, her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw guilt written all over her face. "I knew what he was doing," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "But I thought I could control it. I thought if I went along, he wouldn't take it further." My stomach turned. "So you knew he was planning something?" "You knew?" Tears welled in her eyes. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I didn't think it would go this far," she whispered. "I thought I was protecting you." I laughed bitterly, choking on the sound. Protecting me? By lying to me? By helping him steal behind my back? She dropped her gaze. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. When I left her house, I felt hollow. The bond I thought was unbreakable between sisters had been cracked in ways I didn't know could exist. But when I pulled into my driveway, the crack split wide open. My daughter was waiting at the door, pale and trembling. "Mom," she whispered, "we need to talk." Inside, she confessed something that stopped my heart. "Dad told me never to tell you, but I think you deserve to know. He said you'd never see it coming. That one day, he'd take back everything." Her voice broke, tears spilling down her cheeks. "And Mom, I think that day is soon." When my daughter's words sank in, I felt my knees weaken. He told her? He told our own child, but not me? I held her trembling hands. "What exactly did your father say?" She shook her head, voice breaking. "He said, one day he'd make sure you learned the truth. He said you weren't as innocent as you pretend, and that when the time came, we'd have to choose." Choose. The word echoed inside me like a curse. That night, I gathered both my children in the living room. My son sat stiffly on the couch, arms crossed. My daughter avoided his gaze. "I need to know," I said. "Has your father told you both things he hasn't told me?" My son's jaw tightened. "Mom, maybe Dad's right. Maybe there are things you're not telling us either." My heart sank. "You think I'd lie to you?" He shrugged, but his silence screamed louder than words. My daughter whispered, "He's been twisting everything, Mom. He makes it sound like you're the one who ruined him." I wanted to scream, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Listen to me. Your father is hiding something big. I don't know what it is yet, but whatever it is, it's not about protecting this family. My son shot back, his eyes blazing. Or maybe it's you who's been hiding things, Mom. Maybe that's why he's angry. The room felt colder than winter. My children were starting to see me through his eyes. Later, after they went to their rooms, I heard muffled voices through the walls. My daughter's tearful protests, my son's firm replies. He's right. Mom's not telling us everything. My chest ached. The betrayal wasn't just from my husband anymore. It was bleeding into my children, poisoning them against me. The next morning, I found my son in the kitchen, staring at his phone. Dad texted me. He said, his tone unreadable. He said not to trust you. That you've been keeping secrets since before we were even born. My blood ran cold. What secrets? What could I possibly... He cut me off. Why don't you tell me? Or should I just wait for Dad to do it? I stumbled back, feeling the walls close in. It was happening. The family I built, the love I sacrificed everything for. He was tearing it apart piece by piece, and the children were his pawns. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about money or lies. This was war. And the battleground was my family. The following weekend, my mother-in-law called unexpectedly. Her voice was sharp, commanding. We need to talk. Alone, my stomach nodded, but I agreed. She arrived in the afternoon, her presence filling the kitchen like a storm cloud. She sat across from me, folded her hands, and studied me with eyes that had always been too cold, too calculating. You look surprised, she finally said, but you shouldn't be. My son has been preparing for this moment for a long time. Her words stung. Preparing for what? I asked. To reclaim what you took from him, she replied without hesitation. I blinked. What I took? I've given him everything. My youth, my loyalty, my children. She leaned in, her voice a low hiss. He warned me about you years ago. He said one day you'd leave him empty, that you'd betray him the same way your family betrayed his father. I shook my head in disbelief. That's not true. I never betrayed him. She smiled bitterly. That's the thing about betrayal, dear. It isn't always about what you think you've done. Sometimes it's about what someone else believes you've done. Her words sank deep into my bones. My husband's revenge. It wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't born of anger last week or last year. His mother had fed it, nurtured it, raised it like a second son. I asked, my voice cracking. So the marriage? Was it ever real? Or was I just part of his plan? Her silence was louder than any answer. Finally, she whispered, he told me before he proposed that he'd make sure the Caldwell name never overshadowed his again. That marrying you was only step one. I felt the air rush from my lungs. The room tilted. Step one. Our love, our vows, our children, reduced to strategy. Before she left, she stood at the doorway and looked back at me. You should be careful. He's patient, but patience doesn't last forever. And when he decides it's time, there's nothing you can do. I collapsed into a chair, trembling, replaying every smile, every kiss, every tender word my husband had ever given me. Were they real, or rehearsed lines in a script written years before? That evening, I confronted him again. He didn't deny it. He only said, she finally told you, didn't she? Good. Saves me the trouble. And then he walked away, leaving me shattered in the silence. After my mother-in-law's confession, sleep abandoned me. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The creak of the stairs, the hum of the refrigerator. Even the ticking clock sounded like a countdown. One night, I wandered into the attic. Dusty boxes stacked high, untouched for years, waited in the shadows. I don't know why, but something pulled me there, as if the answers I needed were buried above my head all along. I opened an old chest we had moved into this house after our wedding. Inside were photo albums, holiday cards, and A bundle of letters tied with a frayed ribbon. The handwriting on the envelopes made my heart stop. It was his. Hands shaking, I opened the first one. The words hit me like shards of glass. She thinks she's saving me, but one day she'll pay. I'll make sure of it. Another letter. The ring is just a tool. She'll never know it's not about love. It's about balance, justice, revenge. My chest tightened. These letters were dated months before he even proposed. I sank to the floor, tears blurring my vision. Every kiss, every "I love you," every promise he had whispered. It all began with resentment. By the fifth letter, I realized the truth. He had married me not to build a life, but to dismantle mine. He wrote about my family's estate, about how my inheritance was the key, about how patience will give me everything back that was stolen. My fingers trembled as I clutched the paper. Everything back that was stolen? What did he believe I, or my family, had taken from him? When I confronted him later that evening, I held the letters in my hands. "How long?" I demanded. "How long have you been pretending?" He looked at the bundle, then back at me, his eyes glinting with something between triumph and pity. "Since the day we met," he said simply. I staggered. So none of it was real? Not even the children? His silence was the cruelest answer. That night, I sat in my daughter's room as she slept, watching her chest rise and fall, her hair spilling across the pillow. My son's laughter echoed faintly from the hallway where he scrolled on his phone. Were they pawns, too? Or were they his only real treasures, while I was just collateral damage? I went back to the attic, clutching the letters like evidence of a crime. And that's when I noticed something else at the bottom of the chest. An old envelope unopened. My name scrawled across it. Heart racing, I tore it open. Inside was a single page. One line that made my blood run cold. "You'll never see the betrayal coming. Not from me, not from her." Her? The mysterious line, "Not from me, not from her," haunted me for days. Who was her? My sister? My mother-in-law? Or someone else entirely? I couldn't let it go. So I started digging deeper. Late at night, after everyone was asleep, I searched through our filing cabinet. I rifled past tax forms, birth certificates, even old utility bills. Then, tucked in the very back, I found an envelope labeled "Property Records." Inside, my heart stopped. The deed to my childhood home. I blinked, convinced my eyes were lying. But the black ink was clear, undeniable. Years ago, ownership had been quietly transferred to my husband's name. And worse, it was signed in my handwriting. I dropped the papers, my hands trembling. I never signed this. I would remember. Wouldn't I? The next morning, I confronted him in the kitchen. My voice shook with fury. "You stole my childhood home. You forged my signature." He didn't even deny it. He sipped his coffee slowly, as if savoring the taste of my rage. "Stole?" he said coolly. "No, I reclaimed it. Your family stole it first." I stared at him, baffled. "What are you talking about?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Your father. My father. The deals they made. The debts, the promises. You think you're innocent, but you're not. You're just living off stolen ground." I staggered back. "That's insane. My father never..." But he slammed his fist on the counter. "Don't you dare defend him. You knew. You all knew." The words burned, but deeper still was the realization that he truly believed it. Every act of cruelty, every lie, every plan. It was all rooted in this twisted sense of justice. That evening, I pulled my sister aside again. I showed her the deed. "Did you know about this?" I demanded. Her face went pale. She whispered, "Yes." I felt the air rush from my lungs. "You knew? And you said nothing?" Tears filled her eyes. "I thought if he got the house, it would end. I thought that's all he wanted." I shook my head in disbelief. You thought wrong. When I returned home, I found him sitting at the table with our children. Their faces were somber, their eyes downcast. He looked up at me with a smirk. "Tell them the truth," he said. "Tell them how your family cheated mine. Tell them how everything you own is built on lies." My daughter burst into tears. My son glared at me. "Is it true, Mom?" he asked. I couldn't answer. Not because it was true, but because he had twisted the story so tightly around us that truth and lies no longer felt separate. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom, clutching the deed to my chest, whispering over and over, "It's not true. It's not true. It's not true." But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. By now, I was drowning in questions. My husband, my sister, even my own children. But there was still one person I thought I could lean on. Claire, my best friend since high school. We'd shared everything. Sleepovers, heartbreaks, even each other's wedding vows. She was the one who had held my hand the night I gave birth to my daughter. If anyone could help me piece this together, it was her. Or so I thought. I called her, my voice cracking. "Claire, I need you. Please, can we meet?" She didn't hesitate. "Of course." We met at our usual cafe, the one with the little corner booth that had witnessed years of secrets and laughter. But as soon as I sat across from her, something felt off. She was too composed, too calm. "Claire," I whispered. "He's been planning something for years." He admitted it, and I just found proof. Documents, deeds, even letters. She stirred her coffee slowly, her eyes avoiding mine. "Maybe you're overthinking," she said softly. The words cut deep. Overthinking? That wasn't her. She had always been the one to believe me, to encourage me, to fight for me when no one else did. I leaned closer. "Why are you defending him?" Her spoon clinked against the cup. Finally, she sighed. "Because I knew." My heart stopped. "You, what?" She finally looked at me, her eyes heavy with something I couldn't name. Guilt, regret, resignation. I knew he was planning this. He told me years ago. He said one day he'd take back what was his, and I didn't stop him. The cafe walls seemed to close in around me. "Claire, you've been my best friend for 20 years. And you knew?" Her voice trembled. I thought he was bluffing. I thought it was anger talking. And when it became clear he wasn't bluffing, I was already too deep. I shook my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. "Too deep in what?" she whispered, barely audible. I helped him. The floor dropped from beneath me. "You helped him?" She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I didn't mean to. But when he asked questions about your family, about your inheritance, about the things you never told him," I answered. "I thought I was protecting you by controlling the narrative. But all I did was give him more weapons." I sat there in stunned silence, realizing that every person I had ever trusted had been feeding his plan. Piece by piece, betrayal by betrayal. When I finally found my voice, it was broken, almost a whisper. "So tell me, Claire, were you ever really my friend?" Her answer was a single tear rolling down her cheek, followed by silence. That night, when I returned home, my husband was waiting in the doorway. His words were like knives. "Finally figured out your friend's part in all this?" "Good. Now you know. There's no one left to save you." After Claire's confession, I thought I had reached my limit. But betrayal, it seemed, had no ceiling. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the letters, the deed, the receipt with Marissa's name. My entire world felt like a staged play. Every actor wearing a mask, every line rehearsed. And then, another whisper reached me. It started with a phone call. A woman's voice, hesitant but firm. "You don't know me, but you need to hear this. Your husband, he has a child, and it's not with you." My breath caught. "Who are you?" The line went dead. The next morning, I confronted him. I didn't ease into it, didn't wait for the right moment. I just spat it out. Do you have another child? For the first time, his face shifted. Not surprise, not guilt, but irritation, as if I had uncovered a detail he didn't care to hide anymore. Who told you? He asked flatly. That's not an answer, I snapped. Yes or no? He leaned back, crossing his arms. Yes. The word stabbed through me, my knees buckled, and I gripped the counter for balance. Who? I whispered. He looked me dead in the eyes. Ask your sister. My world tilted. My chest heaved, my ears roared. No, that's not possible. She wouldn't. She couldn't. But deep down, I remembered her silence, her trembling voice on the phone, her plea to let it go. I stormed to Marissa's house, pounding on the door until she opened it. Her face told me everything before her lips did. Tell me it isn't true, I demanded, tears blurring my vision. Tell me he's lying. Her eyes brimmed with tears. I wanted to, but yes, it's true the ground seemed to vanish beneath me. My own sister, my own blood. She tried to speak. It was years ago. A mistake. I thought it wouldn't matter anymore. I thought if I took his money, I could bury it, protect you from ever knowing. I stepped back, shaking my head. Protect me? By giving him a child? Her sobs followed me out the door, but I couldn't hear them. My mind was drowning. At home, I collapsed on the floor of my bedroom, clutching a photo of my children. My daughter's laughter, my son's stubborn pride, all I had left that was untouched. Or so I hoped. But when I looked up, I saw my husband standing in the doorway. His voice was calm, almost soothing. You see now? You were never the center of this story. You were just the obstacle. I couldn't take the silence anymore. Secrets were bleeding into every corner of my life, poisoning everything I touched. So I did the only thing I could think of. I called for a family meeting. Sunday evening, I gathered them all. My husband, my children, my sister, even my mother-in-law. The air in the living room was suffocating. No one wanted to be there, but no one dared to refuse. I stood in the center, clutching the bundle of letters and the deed. My voice trembled, but I forced it out. Enough hiding. Enough whispers. Tonight, everything comes out. My husband leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, that same smirk on his face. Go on then. Tell them your version of the story. I turned to the children first. Your father has been plotting against me for years. He forged documents, stole property, manipulated your aunt, even... My voice cracked. Even had a child outside this marriage. Gasps filled the room. My daughter's eyes widened, tears spilling down her cheeks. My son stared at his father. Is it true? He asked. My husband didn't hesitate. Yes. The bluntness of it was worse than denial. He didn't care anymore. He wanted them to see. Then he rose, pointing a finger at me. But she's leaving something out. She betrayed me first. The room went still. I whispered, "What are you talking about?" He paced slowly, savoring the tension. You think I married you for love? Number. I married you because I knew. I knew what your family did to mine. Your father ruined mine, left us with nothing. And you... He pointed at me again, eyes blazing. You carried his name. You carried his blood. And you smiled in my face while I swallowed the ashes. My knees weakened. I didn't even know about any of that, I pleaded. He slammed his hand on the mantel. Lies. You always knew. That's why you signed the papers without looking. That's why you let me take the house. You knew you owed me. My children looked between us, torn, their faces pale with confusion. My sister sobbed silently in the corner. My mother-in-law's lips curled into something dangerously close to satisfaction. I raised the letters. These prove it, You wrote it all before we even married. This was never about love. This was always revenge. But he only smiled. And revenge tastes better when it's slow, doesn't it? The room exploded into shouts. My daughter crying, my son demanding answers, my sister begging me to stop. But through the chaos, one truth cut sharper than all the rest. He had won. Because no matter what evidence I held, no matter what words I spoke, the seed of doubt had already taken root in my children's hearts. And he knew it. After that explosive night, the house was no longer a home. It was a war zone. My children barely spoke to me. My sister wouldn't answer my calls. And my husband walked around with the confidence of a man who knew the endgame was his. I thought I had already seen the worst of it, until the letter arrived. A plain white envelope slid under the door one morning. No return address, no greeting. Just a set of documents inside. At the top, stamped in black ink, finalized transfer of assets. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Every account, every property, every investment we had built together, gone, sold, reassigned. His name stamped across all of it. I stormed into his study, slamming the papers on his desk. "What have you done?" He didn't even look up from his laptop. "Exactly what I told you I would. I planned this for years. And now, it's finished." My voice cracked. "You're leaving me with nothing. Not even the house." Finally, he met my eyes. Cold, empty. "That house was never yours to begin with. You just kept it warm until I was ready." I staggered back. "You can't do this. There are laws." He cut me off with a bitter laugh. "You think I'd wait this long without covering every angle? Every signature? Every loophole? While you were busy playing wife, I was rewriting the story." I whispered, "And the children? What about them?" His smirk twisted crueler. "They'll understand one day. They'll see that I wasn't the villain. You were." That night, I searched through my papers desperately, hoping to find something he missed. An account, a clause, a piece of proof to turn the tide. But every folder, every drawer told the same story. He had already signed it all away. I called Marissa, begging her for answers, for help. But she only whispered through tears, "It's too late. You should have seen it sooner." And then, as if fate wanted to break me completely, my son approached me in the hallway. His voice was low, almost ashamed. "Mom, Dad says you'll try to play the victim. He says we should be ready when you turn against us." I felt my heart crack. My own child, repeating his father's poison. I wanted to scream, to shake him and make him see the truth. But instead, I just whispered, "Sweetheart, one day you'll understand who really destroyed this family." That night, I lay awake listening to the sound of his footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate, like a predator circling its prey. For the first time, I wondered if this wasn't just about property or revenge. Maybe it was about breaking me completely. And maybe he already had. The house was quiet, but it wasn't peace. It was emptiness. Every picture on the wall, every piece of furniture, even the scent of his cologne that lingered in the air, reminders of a war I had already lost. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of papers he had left behind. Finalized transfer of assets. His handwriting scrawled across the bottom of each page, my signature copied like a ghost. It wasn't just money. It was my life, my trust, my years. The children kept their distance. My daughter whispered goodnight with hesitant eyes, as if she wasn't sure who I was anymore. My son avoided me altogether, choosing instead to follow his father like a shadow. And my sister? Silent. Her betrayal too deep to face me. I was surrounded by family, and yet completely alone. That Sunday, he stood in the doorway with his suitcase. Calm, triumphant. "It's over," he said simply. "You'll survive." "You always do," I wanted to scream, to claw at him, to demand back the years he had stolen. But I didn't. Instead, I looked at him one last time and said, "You didn't just take my home or my money. You took my children's trust. You poisoned their hearts. That's something you'll never win back." He smirked, unbothered. "Maybe not. But I took everything else. And that's enough." When the door closed behind him, I felt something break free inside me. Not strength. Not freedom. Just release. The quiet pressed in. I walked through the house slowly, touching the walls, the furniture, the windows I once cleaned while dreaming of a safe future. And everywhere I turned, I saw his fingerprints. The realization hit me like ice water. I had been part of his plan all along. By signing documents blindly, by trusting words over proof, by ignoring the whispers, I had been his greatest ally in destroying myself. So here I sit now, with nothing but a hollow house and a fractured family. And maybe that's the cruelest twist of all. He didn't just win. He made me the accomplice to my own undoing. If you've stayed with me until the end, maybe your heart has felt something too. Leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe if you'd like to continue sharing these stories with me. Thank you for listening to the whole story. I hope you will support my future works.